it's Debbie with the Pickin Coop Farmstead, and today I am going to be making some sauce out of my homegrown tomatoes. What I normally do is I wash them, and as they blush, turn red, I put them in a Ziploc bag, a gallon Ziploc bag, and put them in the freezer. And then over the winter I make my sauce and I can them. But this year I got lazy and I didn't can. I still have one batch of red tomatoes, and then I probably have 1 to 2 batches of green tomatoes that I need to process. So today I'm taking them out of the freezer because we have a big steer. He's a big boy that's going to be going to freezer camp here shortly, and I'm like, oh, I ran out of room. So I just thought I'd walk you through the process. Today I'm just going to make the sauce, and then early tomorrow morning I'll actually do the canning. So it's a 2-part video. I guess I could do the sauce and then, yeah, I'll do the canning. There we go. All right, so come along and check out how I do this. Okay, so as you can see, I have my big stock pot. This is what I use. And the first gallon of tomatoes are these little cherry tomato guys. I even saved these for them. They make great sauce too. And then I get a big bowl or a big pot, and then I put the frozen tomatoes in, and then I try to defrost them a little bit because every year I say I'm going to core them before I freeze them. Obviously I did not last year. So I need to do that, but it's kind of hard to do when they're frozen. So, and then I just kind of quarter them and throw them in my pot. So that's what we're doing right now. And let's see if I can get this guy. And I use a bread knife just because it's big and serrated, and I found that that seems to do the best. And then I just quarter them, cut the core, and throw them in the pot. And this one seems all right. And so on until you fill up your pot. So, pardon me. I made up a recipe last year because I thought I really like the sauce that I'm making. It tasted pretty good. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to write it down. No more guesswork from one season to the next. And then I am going to, just a rough estimate. So I got 3 gallons, Ziploc bags full of frozen tomatoes. Then I put them on the stove to cook down. And then once they've cooked down, I will use my immersion blender, blend them, cook them down some more, and till you get it as thick as you want. And then I add garlic, I add my homegrown basil, my homegrown thyme, and I put a few red chili flakes in there because that's how I like my sauces. You can leave it out. You can even leave it a blank sauce, just plain old tomato sauce. It just depends, but I use it for everything. This year I'm hoping to get enough tomatoes so I can make ketchup, which you need a lot for that because that has to cook down a lot. And yes, I do. I leave the skins on. I like my sauce that way. I don't like to waste any part of my tomato. So the only part I cut out is the core. The seeds and all. Some people like that and some people do not. This one's good. And sometimes I'll have a little weird thing on the seam. I cut that out. None of this goes to waste. My little chickie pops will get all this. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to finish this bowl of tomatoes. I'm going to turn on my stove. I'll probably add just a smidgen of water and put the lid on. And then it can simmer for a while. Once I bring it up to a boil, it'll simmer for a while until I get everything all melded and cooked in there. And then I will take the lid off so it can start cooking down and get it thick like I like it. So stay tuned and we'll check it out. This is a long process, slow and low. That's what I do with these guys. Okay, there you have it. I got them all cored and sliced into quarters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a pint of warm water. This kind of won't stay warm very long. You don't need a whole lot of water, just enough to keep them from scorching. And then I don't put any salt or anything in it until I've got these guys all cooked down to pretty much where I want them. So on goes the lid, and I keep an eye on them. Then once they start cooking down a little bit, I keep stirring them every once in a while. And I've got to show you my canning spoon that I got from Al and Val. These guys, Val makes the cutting boards and Al makes these wonderful spoons, and it's very long handled, so I can get to the bottom of my pot with plenty of room left over so I do not burn myself. So we're just going to let this go. It takes quite a while, several hours, and then we'll come back and check out what we have. All right, so she is in here bubbling. I turned her down to medium low, and I've got my immersion blender, stick blender sometimes. I'm going to blend this up. And be careful. Try not to lift this out of the water, because if you splash yourself with this, it's pretty darn hot. Now you can keep blending this until it's nice and smooth, or you can leave little chunks of tomatoes in there. It just depends on how you like your sauce. So just customize it how you want. Okay, so that's how all I'm going to do right now. I am chopping up onions. I've got some onions over here. My little recipe that I have, I'm glad I wrote it down, was 3 to 3.5 gallons of tomatoes, 4 bell peppers. That's the only thing I don't have. I have one tiny one that's coming on. I might have some in the freezer that I can get out. They'd be good for this because you're cooking them. Because I've said before, once you freeze your peppers, they kind of turn to mush once you defrost them. But I'm going to look. I think I used them all. And if not, that's okay. When you get open your jar of sauce after you've canned it and you're starting to use it, add some bell peppers if you like then. At least 2 large onions, possibly 3, just depends. I just had white onions, so I used those. I use 1 whole bulb of garlic. I love garlic in my tomato sauce. And then you want to chop that up, and then I chopped about 3 tablespoons, which is quite a bit, but remember, this is a big pot of sauce, of chopped rosemary, and I used fresh. 1 cup of basil chopped, and I also used my fresh basil. If you're using dried herbs, you want to use, I don't know if you want to use more or less. I'll have to research that, and I'll write it across the screen there. Then you're going to salt to taste. You could add pepper if you like pepper. It's up to you. I do crushed dried red pepper to taste. I just use a little bit. I put in paprika, and then I drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil over the top. So we'll go over that again. I'll put this recipe in the comments, and you can tweak it however you like it. If you don't like something, omit it. If you like something else, add it. So it's just a waiting game. We want to cook this down before we add the onions. And then we're going to cook it some more. And the very, very last thing I add is the basil. because that's what I do when I'm cooking my fresh sauce, because you want the freshest basil taste you can get, and the longer you leave it in there, the more it dissipates. So, all right, we'll go to the next stage as soon as we get there. I forgot something. At this point, I think I said early on, once you bring it to a boil and you blend it, you want to make sure that you leave your lid off, because the whole point of this is to cook it down. So you cook it down to get it as thick as you like it. But low and slow is the best way to do this. I know it's time consuming and it will get kind of warm in your kitchen, but in my experience, this is the best way to do it. Okay, so I have cooked about a couple of quarts of liquid out of this. It's still a little thin, but at this point I like to put in my onions, garlic, and rosemary, and I'm just stirring this, and then I let it cook for another hour or two. My pan here has measurements in quarts, so I kind of know where I started once I blended everything together. So it's down about 2 quarts, or an inch. I would say an inch. Okay, so here is, I have my minced garlic, fresh thyme, or excuse me, fresh rosemary. I'm putting it all in the pot. If you have thyme and you like that in your sauce, you can go ahead and put that in. You can put in oregano, whatever you like. I usually do that when I go to open the jars, because not everything I cook do I want thyme or rosemary in. So then you're going to stir these guys in. And then I'm going to let this cook on low for another hour or two, and then I'll blend it with my immersion blender again, just so I don't have big chunks in there. You don't have to, but that's what I like to do. Now, as far as using dried herbs versus fresh herbs, here, let me look at the camera here. I looked it up, and fresh herbs, I think because they have so much of the water content still in them, you need to use 1.5 times of fresh herbs as you would to dried herbs. Dried herbs, when you dry them, whether you dehydrate them or just hang them upside down, let them dry naturally, all the water content goes out of that plant. So you need to use more fresh because of the water, less dry because there is no water. So hopefully that'll make sense to you. All of these measurements I have are for fresh herbs. I did the fresh rosemary and then the fresh basil. So, and you could even use dehydrated onions and dehydrated garlic too. So it's up to you. Use what you have. Start where you are. I'm going to start incorporating that more into my videos. Okay, so we're going to let this percolate for an hour or two longer. It'll thicken up. It'll take on the flavor of the garlic, onions, and the rosemary that we just put in there. Then we'll reblend it, and then it technically will be ready for canning. All right, stay tuned. Okay, it's been about an hour or so, and I just blended the onion, garlic, and rosemary in. So now I'm going to add salt. I'd say maybe 3 teaspoons of salt. Maybe a tablespoon of paprika, or a little more. And then, I'm not a huge hot person, so maybe half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. And get these guys out of the way. Stir that in. And it's starting to get thicker and thicker all the time, which is exactly what we want. So we're going to let these spices meld, marry, meld, whatever you like to use terminology wise. I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. And then we'll chop up our parsley, or excuse me, our basil. And you could put parsley in at that time, which I might do. I've got some fresh parsley. That wouldn't be a bad thing to add to this. Okay, stay tuned. Okay, it's been about 20 to 30 minutes. We let our paprika, salt, and stuff kind of meld. So now I'm going to shut it off. It's as thick as I want it. If you want it thicker, cook it longer. It's simple, simple, simple. But this is how I like it. It's probably gone down about 1.5 inches. And then, so now what we're going to do, I have chopped up about a cup of fresh basil, maybe 1/4 cup of fresh parsley. Put that in there. And I don't really want this to cook, so that's why I turn it off. Stir that around. And one more thing. Drizzle over it a little extra virgin olive oil, maybe 3 tablespoons or so. Not very good at measuring. All right, so I've got that. You want to stir that. Now at this point, you could go ahead and can this up. But since it's so hot, we're in an old farmhouse and we don't have central air. So I'm just going to take it off of the burner, let it cool down, and then tomorrow morning will be my canning project. But it is ready to go. If you had hot sterilized jars, you could go ahead and put that in there. I do not put lemon juice in mine. That is not really FDA approved, but I also pressure can mine, so you don't really have to worry about that. I just don't like the flavor of the lemon juice in there, or even vinegar. It just kind of makes my sauce sour, tart. I don't like it that way. So anywho, that is how I make my sauce. Feel free to tweak this any way you like it. You could use all dried herbs, all fresh herbs. Like I said, dried, dehydrated onions, garlic, that type of thing. You could put more chili flakes if you like it really spicy. I do not. I tasted it. I had to add about 3 more pinches of salt. Just, you know, some of you might be on a low sodium diet. Just omit the salt or put very, very little. It's just a base recipe, basically. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.